Again. Welcome to Caleb Can't Read. I'm Jordan Rabel.
I'm Caleb Terrence.
And I hope you're proud of yourself.
I am sorry that I was a bad boy last week and became too drunk by pre-gaming for the episode to finish. And now we are back.
To finish, we barely started
Okay,
it.
cool.
We didn't finish the first
great.
page.
Hopefully the reason I don't remember it was the drinking and not that it was just really boring. So
honestly, if you had Alzheimer's, that would make for a better podcast.
I'm 100% getting Alzheimer's.
You've been hitting the head a lot.
Yeah, I've been hitting the head a lot. I've drank a lot, and every guy in my family dies with Alzheimer's.
Yeah,
so.
God does definitely exist because no one would hate you this much, to do what they have done to you throughout your life.
I know it's not God. I just get really excited and stop thinking a lot. Does that ever happen to you?
Dog? No.
Does the spirit ever just take you?
What are you, fucking Yorkie? No.
Sometimes something just moves funny and you just gotta fuck with it. Or you gotta touch a limb that's, weird, and then it, hits
I touch
you.
a weird limb every day. Well, let's get started, shall we?
Once a day for you?
I mean,
I'm a once a day person.
I'm not gonna touch it while I pee. That's gay.
Okay, yeah.
Nobody does that. No, you just drop trowel, you pick up your shirt and tuck it under your chin, and
and then pants around the ankles.
Yeah, duh.
Yeah.
And you just kind of Superman pose it while you pee.
Absolutely.
Duh.
And then your wife cleans it up if you miss the toilet bowl, right?
I mean, who else is gonna do it?
Cool. Nicole!
I'm done! No better way to segue this author, I guess.
Okay.
Well, let's get started, shall we?
Oh, is he also, is he not ironically mean to women? But actually...
Actually, I was joking, but yeah, no, he's very mean to women.
Oh, okay.
Also, I don't have anywhere else to really put this in here, but he's black. So you're just going to have to just imagine that.
It concerns me that you need to tell me that.
It kind of makes sense for the context of some things if you just thought that he wasn't. Oh, you fucking suck. Oh, pick that up later.
Okay.
It didn't stick. Nobody needs to know what happened.
Okay.
Now listen to me. Robert Lee Maupin was born August 4th, 1918 in Chicago, Illinois to Mary Brown Lee and a father whom Robert never named, but who we at least know had the last name of Maupin. Robert's parents had met in Tennessee. His grandfather on his dad's side was a successful cook in Chicago and offered a job to the two lovebirds as a waiter and waitress should they happen to move up to the big city. Well, Mary was one of 10 children, so her parents were completely into the idea of marrying her off if it meant one less mouth to feed. So off to Chicago they went. However, although they worked 12-hour days, 6 days a week in a fancy hotel, Mary and her husband still didn't end up with a whole lot of money. So around 4 months into Mary's pregnancy with Robert, her husband's demeanor changed. He had apparently become so dazzled by the lights and women of Chicago and what the possibilities for him could have been that he became very remorseful towards his current situation and became an abusive man.
Huh.
When Mary came home after giving birth to Robert, his father took one look at him and told her to abandon him on the steps of a Catholic church. As Robert would later tell it, quote, "Mama naturally refused, so he hurled me against the wall in disgust. I survived it, and he left us."
Oh, yeah, I'm not going to put a joke there.
Nor should you.
Okay.
A lot of this episode is kind of like that, actually.
All right, cool. This will be a mostly Jordan episode, everyone.
We've got a
We are
soundboard
throwing
if you want
babies into
if you
walls.
want to badumps or any of this.
I don't remember which button it is. And I don't
literally
want to hit the
labeled
applause on
them.
accident.
Applauding for the... All right, see, you already did it. You went and made a joke about the baby. Now, if Mary left the household without any sort of permission, it stands to reason that this is why she and Robert bounced around so much in the Midwest.
What else bounced around?
Wrong. Bad. No. Places like Wisconsin and Illinois during Robert's childhood. At a very early age, I'm talking like less than 5, Robert was sexually abused by his babysitter. I won't get into the details, but he very clearly remembers it. And he doesn't try and act like he's a smooth operator like Casanova did when he got fucking molested at 11. Robert knew this was some sick fucking shit, and it is hard to read. When she was working as a maid, Mary suffered all sorts of verbal abuse, leading to a lifelong hatred of white people. So Mary started her own business in hairstyling. She'd go door to door with a suitcase full of her beauty supplies in one hand and Robert all bundled up in a blanket in her other arm. And she'd just, "Oh, could you help a struggling mother with her growing business? It won't cost much." And it worked. It worked well enough that she eventually set up her own beauty salon in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And apparently she was actually quite good at what she did because her business was very successful. Now, while Robert was a kid, he remembers a whole host of men in his mother's life, most of which took advantage of her charity, whether that was housing or money. But Robert remembers having a genuine love for one father figure in particular named Henry Upshaw. And Henry loved both him and his mother too. Henry bought Robert all the hottest shit when he was just 10 years old. Had better shoes than the bankers, he said. But Mary started getting close to one of her regulars, a guy named Steve. And according to Robert, the guy was just a slick bastard who was up to no good. But Mary fell for it. She became unnecessarily cruel towards Henry Upshaw. Shit, Robert even remembers Henry holding him close and both of them crying because the guy knew Mary was about to have him leave them forever. Well, it wasn't long before Steve himself was kicked to the roadside by Mary, too. But who should Steve know and get in contact with but Robert's dad? And he gets...
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Well, he's got memory... No. Mm-hmm. And he gets in touch with Mary again. And of course, all of a sudden, though, he wants to do right by his family. So he takes them...
Is it because Mary has money?
Yeah.
Or at least like a little bit?
Yeah, clearly,
oh, okay.
Yeah. So he takes them back to his place where he's got a sick little pad and all this really nice furniture. It's clear that while he's been on his own, he's been doing all right himself. Well, not long after, the family goes out on some errands one day. But when they get back, all his shit is gone. And everyone's shocked. Mary tells him that she's going to stay out of his way and not make it so hard on him as he gets the money together to provide a new place for them to all stay again. So she tells him that she and Robert are going to stay with a friend. Turns out that friend was Steve. And guess who just got new home furnishings?
A special friend.
Oh, it was a very special friend indeed. Steve and Mary had robbed Robert's dad, and now they were set for life. They just ghosted him with all of his shit.
Good.
Yeah. You know what? I know Steve's kind of a bastard
he throws
too,
babies,
but
right? Like,
yeah.
That's a very high bar of bastardness.
Right?
I don't think Steve's going to hit that. Or is he? Is he going to hit it?
He
Okay,
hits.
don't spoil it. I'm excited.
But it wasn't long before it turned out that Steve was an insatiable asshole too. Completely abusive. Told Robert almost immediately that if he didn't manage to run away, he was going to kill him. And honestly, he might have.
Okay.
Yeah. At least he did
we're getting close.
Yeah, I mean, he's just like, hey, fair warning, kid. I'll kill you. You better find a new place to stay. But luckily, Mary got abused enough times to finally leave town with Robert before he could make good on his promise.
I don't know. I wouldn't. I don't like your wording there.
Luckily, yeah.
I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, it was lucky in the terms of how things could have gone, but it wasn't good.
I mean,
none of it is good.
She could have not gotten hit. That could have been lucky.
Is that a possibility? I don't.
Maybe. I don't know, man. Like, just say phrasing, okay? Jesus.
Robert would say in his later memoirs that the last time he saw Steve was decades later. Robert was in his apartment having breakfast, looking 3 stories down and watching the garbage man dump the trash bin in his truck. Well, who should that garbage man be but Steve? Robert says that when he came to, he was in the street in his pajama bottoms and a gun in his hand, watching the garbage truck drive away, just missing him. Now, when Mary had run out with Robert away from Steve, they eventually settled into Southside Chicago, where she was able to start another beauty salon. And she earned enough money to not just provide for both herself and Robert, but to also give him a good middle-class schooling at a time when the Great Depression was just beginning.
Oh, that works out great.
Well, I mean, actually,
it's really good. And no, it doesn't work. That doesn't work, because then you just get fucked with by all the rich kids. Like, your parents will try to move.
Still go to school.
Your parents will try to move your broke ass into a nice area so that you can go to a nice school, and then you just get fucked with by the kids who have money.
I was actually kind of happy that I decided not to go to fucking Jesuit, because I had that option where
Jesuit?
like,
what the fuck is
it's a private school. It's a
Okay.
private high school for Catholic boys and shit. And my parents, me especially, we're not any kind of religious, but like basically they were like, your grades are good enough that like if you want to go, you can go. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna miss my friends, so I went with my friends to
Wait, is that
public
like
school.
Is that did they do the thing where like it's all boys or all girls?
You know what? I don't know. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure it's co-ed.
Oh, okay. All right.
But either way, I'm happy I didn't because, yeah, fair point. I would have been bullied the shit, but we were very poor.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Well, oh well, I guess.
Would have made you wear one of them little plaid skirts. Yeah.
I mean, I still ended up with one. So, and Robert was definitely a mama's boy. She had enough money to give him whatever he wanted. But it was the clientele he saw coming to his mama's establishment that truly wowed him. These men wore big, clean suits, their shoes shined bright, and the women they brought in were hella fine. These were, of course, pimps. Quote, they seemed so glamorous and so worldly and so polished and sophisticated, so this is what molded my thinking, and I wanted to be a pimp. I used to just dream about being a pimp and having all those sexy women giving me money. But Mary wanted him to be a lawyer. She figured if he enjoyed the lifestyle of the streets of Chicago so much, he can get real friendly with the people in it and earn a good income too while he tries to keep their asses out of jail, which honestly was a pretty good idea.
That's a nice suggestion.
It
Did
is,
he
yeah.
do that?
A little bit, actually. So with his lawyering prospect in mind, Robert attended. Don't lick your fingers after you put in the lime.
I want to get.
You put the lime in the coconut, and then you don't suck it off.
I'm trying to arouse you.
Well, it can't get harder than this, bud. Okay. So with his lawyering spitting too, you are going to get me harder. Stop.
Okay.
So with his lawyering prospect in mind, Robert attended the Tuskegee University in Alabama.
Didn't we talk about that once before?
Yeah, because I called it Tuskegee.
Oh, yeah.
I'd only ever read it.
Yeah.
So really, stop. Fuck.
It's got... All right. Okay.
At this point, you're just like fellatiating your fingers.
Okay, let me explain this. All right. So
you don't need to fish hook your cheek to suck it.
Putting the lime in my Modelo, and I have gotten some of the lime juice on my hands. Now, my options here are I can try to wipe it off on my pants, or
like an adult,
go to the fucking bathroom
Why?
and wash my goddamn hands and stop the recording, or I can get it off my hands so they won't be all sticky. Okay, I don't want to be sticky, man. So I'm just gonna start fucking licking them.
No, you just kind of like you don't need to be gross about it. You just
no,
and
I don't need to be gross about it at all. What?
Anyway,
how do you lick your fingers?
That's when we start our YouTube channel. So with his lawyering prospect in mind, Robert attended the Tuskegee University in Alabama on a scholarship he'd earned for his high GPA in high school. He was actually at the university the same time as Ralph Ellison, though they never mention one another in their writings, so it's fair to say they never met. In fact, while Ralph Ellison was busy being a music nerd, Robert was making moonshine. This would only be a small part to his expulsion the same year he was admitted to Tuskegee in 1937. What really led
was it from pimping?
Yeah. What really led to his expulsion
amazing.
was this. Yeah. Oh, and he told people for a little while it was because of moonshine.
Why would you? Wait, no, I can't tell him it's pimping. It's like, really? Moonshine?
Well, one day he's lying in his bed with his girlfriend who tells him, "Oh, Robert, I'd do anything for you." And he was like, "Yeah?
I was hoping you'd say,
would you turn tricks for me?" And she was like, "Yeah." So he advertises his own girlfriend as a hooker, but he does this the safest way he can, pretty much just word of mouth. No, he doesn't put up show posters or anything.
Yeah, I mean.
And who should be her first client but someone who works with her dad? Now, I don't think the guy actually banged her because, as Robert tells it, the guy was out of there pretty quick. Honestly, given our track record, that could have been either.
Oh, that's a career-destroying pussy.
Yeah.
Yes.
But he obviously told her dad, and in turn, her dad must have called the school. The university started investigating Robert and found his bootleg.
I'll do this, but hey, not women I know.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, they started investigating Robert and found his bootlegging operation, though according to him, it wasn't even his setup that they found, but a friend of his. But since you don't rat on friends, Robert took the rap. With hopes of being a criminal lawyer dashed for Mary, Robert hung around her beauty salon and studied the clientele. Eventually, Robert got brave enough to see what he could learn on the streets of Chicago firsthand. But of course, you can't just hit the streets and call it good. No, you have to have someone teach you the tools of the trade, especially if you don't know where the fuck to begin.
That's fucked up, though.
What?
You get expelled and you're trying to be a lawyer for pimping. I mean, they have doomed you to a life of pimping.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't want him to be pimping, then like...
Well, how about we put it on a much simpler level? Let's say that you don't want somebody to be abusing drugs in your society. Now, you could A, get him help, or B, stick him in prison where he's going to be able to find more drugs and lead to a life of crime afterwards.
He's going to have a worse time about it. So, that's important.
He's much funnier when he's high.
We need justice because he, got high. So, and that's bad. Right?
Straight to the chamber with him. I agree.
Yeah.
So Robert would go to his local bars and order a cherry cola because remember, he's only like 19 and dressed to the nines, acting tough. He would eventually walk up to someone who looked gangster enough and play up how astounded he was by them, and hopefully they would gracefully show him a few tricks. The first guy to show Robert how to con people with a few simple moves was a man named Joe Party Time
tricks
Evans.
As in...
Like actual, here's the rules, here's how you do things. I'm sure he showed him his tricks as well. Yeah, prostitutes, I'm sure.
Please, Jordan, phrasing, man.
Prostitutes. They're all called hookers and prostitutes in this story. That's all.
Okay.
So the first guy to show him these things, though, was Joe Party Time Evans. Now, I don't know
Legal name?
Well, I don't know if this was his real...
he's beautiful. Joe Party Time Evans.
I don't know if this was his real street name because Robert would later change the names of people he knew in his memoirs. But apparently in real life, he gave the name Party Time to Joe Evans because, in real life, whenever he walked into a bar, he'd announce his presence by yelling, "Party time!" And so he's just like, fuck it, good enough name for him. But before Robert could even start his career in a life of crime, he got into a love affair with a married woman named Pepper. And he was head over heels for this lady. Shit, she even introduced him all too gladly to cocaine. And by the way, she wasn't just married.
People who do cocaine will do that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Evil sons of bitches. Yeah.
Look, it's just, I don't know. Not for me.
That's what makes you a better person. She wasn't just married, but she was married to a rich white man, which was very dangerous for the obviously not white Robert. But he thought he was smart enough to sneak around the issue and not get caught. Instead, after one of their lovemaking sessions in a hotel, Robert went down to the hotel bar where there was a cop waiting for him. The cop stops him and says, "Hey fella, you're matching the description of a burglar we're looking for." "You mean 6 foot and black?" "Yeah,
Yeah.
Real caramel mocha kind of guy, yeah." And despite all despite all of his denial, Robert still got frisked by the cop, who found the house key to the robbed estate.
Hey, wait, what are you doing with this penis?
That's my penis. He
Won't be fucking any white women with this penis, were you?
Let me smell it.
Let me smell your
he actually found the house key to the robbed estate in his coat pocket. Turns out the victim of the robbery was none other than Pepper's husband. She was playing the same game Robert had seen his mother pull on his own father back in the day.
That is quite the affair if you have a house key. Damn.
Right? Yeah. Pepper had dropped the house key in his pocket during their bang sesh and let an accomplice rob the place in the meantime. Because of Pepper's little game, Robert was incarcerated for about 2 years in jail.
Oh, he's going to learn how to be a pimp in there.
For a bit, yeah, actually.
Oh, wow.
There, Robert quickly got...
turning a very different kind of trick.
He quickly got affiliated with the local pimps like he'd always wanted. He'd be able to get at least a little bit of his first bit of training from these guys. And I mean, shit, there's nothing to do in prison, so they were all too eager to talk about how they played the game. From what Robert learned, the most successful pimps were also the cruelest. And he'd seen the cruelness of both Pepper and his own mother.
Oh, this is bad learning.
And knew women had to be controlled before they would control you first. You would have to convince your women that you were God. Robert was released from prison.
Oh.
Yeah, it doesn't...
Okay.
It's not all fun and games here.
Yeah.
He is a pimp after all.
Let's do this and put our names on it. Let's go. I'm ready.
Robert was released from prison in June of 1942 and became a pimp at about the age of 20. And out there, he went right back to doing the same thing he did before. Go to local joints and act impressed by the biggest players. Eventually, a man by the name of Albert Baby Bell took Robert under his wing. He was a well-established pimp in the area, drove a big fancy car, and had a fucking ocelot. Do you know what an ocelot is?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool as shit, though.
It's a weird cat.
Yeah, basically. It's got really big ears and it's really cute.
Yeah.
I think he even gave it a diamond collar and shit.
What was his
because
name?
he could. Yeah, fuck! We're not going to be able to find that.
I mean, we can pause and Google it real quick. That's a frequent occurrence here.
You know what? Yeah, I'm really curious about
All right,
the
hang
animal.
on, everybody.
It was Mittens. No.
Yeah, I was going to say we should just make something up.
It seems more than anything, everyone was just like really weirded out that it had an ocelot and didn't want to ask any questions about it.
I feel like,
I mean,
yeah, that must have been. That
that's
would be
fair.
documented if it had a name.
Yeah,
because it's fucking amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
When baby, I mean, I'm sure it's like, hey, what's your ocelot's name? Fuck you, that's his name. Okay, cool name. Like,
An ocelot named Bitches.
when Baby Bell traveled, he'd have over 30 pieces of luggage on him. That type of shit. He also had white hookers too.
Would he carry the luggage?
No. But to be fair, this is back when like everyone wore a hat and you had to have hat boxes. So, I mean, if he's got 5 different hats, yeah, it's a hat box. It's a piece of luggage. So, I mean, I'm sure that's counting for at least 5. I know. What, you didn't wear a fedora throughout high school?
No. I know most of the hair on my face comes in thicker on my neck, but I did not, in fact, ever have that vibe. Thank you very much.
Well, he also had white hookers too, which at the time, being a black man with white girls under your thumb was a huge no-no. But he was the first actual pimp Robert learned tutelage under. This dude was a nasty piece of work too. Shot a friend 5 times in front of about 30 or 40 people and still got away with it. If I remember right, the friend was just like getting drunk and was like palling around with him a little too much. And
this
he
guy's
just didn't
name
like
again?
it. Albert Baby Bell. Yeah.
Come on. It's Albert. I know he shot it 5 times, but man, come on. It's Albert.
Well, he had to learn how to be tough in school because his name was Albert. Damn it, I wish I had a regular name like Adolf.
Whoa.
First night out showing Robert.
Why the fuck?
What?
Okay, we're slapping women. You had to tell me he's fucking black. You just had to fucking raise the bar and throw in an Adolf Hitler joke.
That wasn't a Hitler joke.
You said Adolf. That's a Hitler joke.
There was more than one Adolf.
Why do you have to fucking pepper that in this episode as well? What the fuck is wrong with you? Why can't it just be spicy enough as it is? We're fucking abusing women here, man. Like, why can't... Is that not spicy enough for you?
That's a good sound clip for us to cut out there. We're fucking abusing women out here.
Fuck off!
Well, first night out showing Robert the ropes, they were sitting in his car and one of Belle's girls knocks on the window, complaining that it's raining and that the cops are watching her. He says, yeah, of course they're being watched. You're a fucking hooker. Just be smart about it. And as for the rain, quote, walk between the raindrops, bitch.
Damn.
Yeah. I always remember that quote.
Fuck, man. I can't wait to tell that to a new guy. Oh, fucking A. Yes.
It's raining. Walk between the raindrops, bitch. Jesus. Jesus. At the time when he was just starting out, Robert went by the name Youngblood, but really that's a moniker given to any kid who thinks he's tough enough for the streets. The first girl Robert got was when he was doing his regular, looking all cool routine at the bar. The bartender comes up to him and gives him a Coca-Cola. Says it's from the girl at the end of the bar. Robert doesn't even look at her. Just asks the bartender if she's been what he calls street poisoned, meaning does she know her around a corner or two. Bartender says, yeah, she Georgia'd 2 pimps already. She's a runaway.
She wanted to?
To Georgia, someone means to take the cash that they earned and run away from their pimp, by the way. It's like... Oh. Yeah,
just take the money that you've earned
taking what
for yourself.
You earned. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, not sharing your union dues. Yeah.
Yeah, no one fuck any sex workers that are not Georgia-ing.
Well, apparently, I mean, like, from what I've read about it, that's damn near a death sentence for any of these girls. Jesus. Well, anyway, Robert tells the bartender to send the Coke back to her and pay for her bill. Soon enough, the girl comes up to Robert like, what the fuck? That was rude. And he gives her this whole spiel like, bitch, I know who you are. You want to be with a player like me? I run a tight ship and I don't take no lip. I'm going to go to the bathroom to take a piss and you better be out here with an answer when I come out. So he goes to the bathroom and while he's in there, he grabs a small roll of toilet paper and wraps some bills around it so it looks like a fat wad of cash. When he comes out of the bathroom, he pays for the drinks with his bankroll. And of course, she sees it and thinks he's big time. So she decides to go with him. Actually, you ought to consider doing that on dates from now on.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
What? Just Just a fat wad of cash. Like, yeah, I can pay for dinner in no time. Oh shit, they're out of toilet paper in there. Well, you won't believe this, but I got you covered for that too.
Okay, no. I'm not gonna take the high ground here and tell you that I'm a good person, so I wouldn't do that. But I will say that the fact that I'm an arborist comes up, they're not going to believe that I have a ball of cash.
That's fair. That's actually fair.
That's not a thing.
Yeah, that is
no
true.
one will believe this.
Yeah, that's true. For any of our listeners out there in Bangladesh, you can do that because you come from a pretty ritzy area, so go for it.
Is it a ritzy area? I told you. Okay,
no,
I'm
that's
not
New
going to
Delhi.
advertise that.
That's New Delhi.
It
doesn't matter. I don't know. We're Americans. We don't know anything about geography.
Yeah.
Geology, whatever it is. Rocks. And boy, Robert was not kind man to his girls. I don't feel the need to go into the gritty details, but he was for sure playing mind games with his prostitutes, and his whole philosophy on how to treat them can be boiled down to this single quote. I don't want to be a half-ass gigolo lover like the white pimps. I really want to control the whole whore. I want to be the boss of her life, even her thoughts. I got to con them that Lincoln never freed the slaves.
Okay, dude, you really need to have a talk with people ahead of time before you say shit like that.
That's a quote.
No, I mean, no, I know. I'm saying...
it's a heavy episode. Go figure.
Like...
As a prison psychologist would later suspect...
That is not what I meant. Anyway, go on.
As a prison psychologist would later suspect...
Okay, doing the line.
The way he treated his prostitutes was terrific catharsis for Robert to spend all of his pent-up rage about what he felt were the wrongs of woman. Robert was soon known for his cold, icy demeanor.
What do you mean? What do you think the wrongs of women were?
Oh, just how he got fucked over by that married woman and saw what his mom did. He was very misogynistic for a time.
The pimp?
Yeah.
Weird.
God damn it, I took you seriously for a second. Robert was soon known for his cold, icy demeanor and his 6'2" frame at just 180 pounds. He got his street name because of it. But according to Robert himself, one incident in particular led to the famous name. He was in a bar where a couple of guys were arguing. One thing led to another, and one dude tries to shoot the other one. But he missed, and instead put a hole right in Robert's hat. And Robert doesn't fucking flinch.
Oh, shit.
Everyone thought he was cool as ice. But in reality, Robert was just pumped so full of cocaine that he didn't even notice he was almost shot.
It didn't even register?
No, he didn't know. And everyone's just like, fuck, dude, that man's cold as ice.
Like, that guy's cold. He's like, I am up here right now, dude. Like, I am fucking off this planet.
I have been up for 2 days. You guys want to do a push-up contest? Yeah.
Fuck. It's my turn to tell the story.
I have so many good fucking ideas. I need a pen and paper.
Oh, fuck, it's the sun.
Bro, regardless of how he got it, he would still become known by his infamous name, Iceberg Slim. Now, that name actually comes much later, but it was the instance that Robert came up with the nickname himself. In reality, while he was on the streets, he was known as Kavanaugh Slim. And I don't know what know what Kavanaugh means in this context, but we're just gonna I went extensive.
I want to know.
You're not gonna.
Is it like okay? All right,
I'm pretty sure Kavanaugh was like.
No, I don't know a lot of things. This is fine.
And I'm gonna give you a fake answer because I tried to make this connection, but I couldn't confirm it. Kavanaugh was the name of either a movie or radio detective kind of thing, and he was always like a cool dude. His name was Kavanaugh, and maybe that's where it came from, but I could not confirm that either way. Nobody talked about it.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, let's go with it.
Okay, moving on.
Now, Kavanaugh, we're going to make up everything else, too. Now, Kavanaugh worked his way up the chain of command in Chicago, eventually becoming one of the top pimps, but he always had his rivals. Back when he was first starting out, one of his mentors was a man who used to frequent his mother's beauty salon, a pimp by the name of Pretty Preston. By the time Kavanaugh Slim was on the scene, however, Preston was the doorman for a craps joint. But Preston was still eager to tell Kavanaugh everything he knew if he bought him a pint of booze from the liquor store on the corner. On his way to the liquor store, he saw an incredibly brutal pimp by the name of Poison stomping on one of his women half to death. When Kavanaugh came back and told Pretty Preston about it, he said, yeah, and he'll get away with it too, because he's a fucking cop. He became a very dangerous figure for Kavanaugh Slim throughout the years. But Kavanaugh Slim was able to keep his head above high water with help from a friend named Satin.
Wait.
What?
Did Poison ever have any consequences for his actions?
Not
Or did he
really.
just
I believe he died of a heart attack, which was probably like cocaine induced, but
Yeah.
not really like. No, I mean he's a cop.
Jesus.
Yeah. Well, Satin was close to a lot of the top
That's
players.
fucking terrifying.
The whole thing is.
Okay.
Satin was close to a lot of the top players in Chicago, and rather than Kavanaugh starting at the bottom, he got in close with one guy who was friends with the top players and just kind of shoehorned himself in. After 3 years of pimping, on June 6, 1945, 2 of Kavanaugh's hookers turned state's evidence against him, sending him to Leavenworth Prison. He was forced to break coal while he was there, which, I would like to remind you, he's never worked an actual laborious job in his life.
Oh.
It was fucking hell to him. But by August 7th, 1946, just a little over a year later, Kavanaugh was back on the streets. What?
Yeah, we'll just put him in prison. He's a monster. And we're just going to make him do a job that makes him strong. And then just let him back out. Like, solid plan. Like,
Well, get me another bussy.
yeah, I got you.
Thank you.
Why did you say that?
I've
You can't call beers boy pussy. What the hell is wrong with you?
It's just as sweet. No lime for me, though.
Fuck
please. Thank
you.
you.
No.
You don't want any more bussy?
Just say...
Okay.
I guess.
Open it.
I mean, you were aware that that was what that is, right? Like, you didn't... Yeah. Okay.
But with Kavanaugh Slim in prison... Quit looking at me. But with Kavanaugh Slim in prison, his whole harem was now gone. Is it harem or harem?
It's harem, man.
Is it harem? God damn it. Harem?
Yeah, I'll bet on it. Yeah,
I'm not. I'm not willing to do any of that.
Fucking pussy.
His women were with other pimps now. His cash was gone, and he didn't have anyone to fall back on. To try and get a bit of quick cash to get himself back where he was in the street game. Thank you. Kavanaugh turned to armed robbery. But this didn't last very long. He quickly got caught and was sent to Cook County Jail. He was actually able to somehow escape in 1947, but was eventually caught. But not for a long while. From what I could tell, it was 14 years later that he was on the run.
Holy shit.
In 1961.
At that point, just fucking let it go. Like, come on, man. Like...
By then, he had been in 3 states.
Imagine getting caught after 14 years.
Right?
You'd be
And
so comfortable, and then just like, motherfucker.
And they're just like, we finally caught you. And it's like, for the pimping? No, for the armed robbery. When the fuck did I do?
It's like, oh, fucking A. God damn right. Like,
by then, he had been in 3 states with a host of about 8 or 9 girls at any time, fully addicted to cocaine and heroin. So by this time in 1961, at the age of 42, Kavanaugh Slim served 9 months in solitary confinement in Cook County Jail. While he was in, just in
threw him straight to solitary?
Yeah, just in these 9 months, while he was in the
Holy shit, 9 months.
9 months. While he was in, the whole pimp world he knew died out. Party Time and Baby Bell had died. His mother was actively dying in California. Now, as cruel of a woman as Mary had been, Robert was still a mama's boy. And this news that he may not make it to see
was she cruel to him, or did she just rob a dude?
No, she wasn't necessarily cruel to him.
Yeah, I thought she was pretty decent to him,
she was good to him, but he hated how she treated that whole thing with that one dude that she pretty much just said, no, fuck you, I'm gonna go with Steve now, Henry Upshaw.
Yeah, but look how men were treating her.
Right. But here's the thing, like, he's like, he put out a whole chapter on this dude where he was like, I'm never going to forgive her. Like, I love her to death, but I will never forgive her for doing him like that. Like, he loved that man. Like, and he probably wouldn't have been in this fucking situation. I think he banked on that, honestly. Really? Like, oh yeah. Like, he sees Henry Upshaw being turned down as, like, just the end of his fucking life, basically. Which is, I mean, it's nuts, but hey, he might be right, because look at how he turned out, I guess. This news, though, that he may not make it to see his mother in time before her death due to the choices he made, completely broke him. After being a pimp for a little over 20 years, he decided he was done with the pimp life for good. According to him, he had over 400 different women in his employ during his career. Not all at once, of course. While he was in jail, a prison psychologist...
logistically, that would be insane.
That would be cool as shit. No.
Logistically, that would be fucking sick.
It would be... Oh, so you've got a small city. Yes! While he was in jail, a prison psychologist brought in the test to measure Kavanaugh's IQ. It was 175, more than genius-level intellect. While in solitary, Robert kept adding up the time. Will I make it out in time to see Mama before she passes? But by the time his 9 months was up, he learned that the jail was adding more time to his sentence. Nothing through the courts or anything, they just kind of decided as a forethought. They were like, fuck him. Robert wrote a letter to the warden pleading with him to let him go. And you know what? It fucking worked. As soon as he was out, Robert made his way to his mother's place in LA. He hadn't seen his mother in a very long time. By the time he saw her again, she had already married and was widowed to a man named Ural Beck, who had died back in 1956. Mary herself lasted just long enough to see her son and passed away in 1962. After his retirement from pimping, Iceberg Slim went back to his name of Robert, now calling himself Robert Beck after his mother's last marriage, and moved down to LA full-time. He met a lovely southern white woman by the name of Betty Shue at a hamburger stand, and eventually settled down with her in 1961 when he was 42 and she was 26.
That's some game, man.
He was a smooth talker.
How the fuck do you make small talk at a fucking hamburger stand?
Oh, fuck. I actually know the answer to this.
Should we pause?
No. I know the answer.
All right.
Like, it was a hamburger stand. I want to say that she was, like, maybe working there or she was just there or something. And he just comes up to her and he's like, hey, you have any hot dogs? And she's just like, no. He's like, man, I know a good place to get some hot dogs. And that fucking worked. Like, he took her on a date to get some hot dogs, and he was very kind. He had actually been, like, kind of reformed in solitary. Not to say it worked. Not to say that worked specifically.
Don't put that out there.
No. But basically, while he was
so no, but yes is what what the fuck,
he's
man?
forced to go through withdrawals and shit, and he was just like, this is fucked up.
And my mom I forgot he was going through withdrawals and solitary.
Cocaine and heroin. Yeah. Like, I'm used to a speedball at 8. Like, yeah, no. And of course, back then,
I don't remember what happened the last 2 weeks, but my nails are gone.
Hey, can you imagine how jacked he is from all the push-ups he's been doing? But, like, I mean, yeah, especially back then, they're not giving you any kind of medicine to help you come down or anything. It's cold turkey or nothing.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm sure, like, I don't know. He was very remorseful about the fact that, like, he blamed himself that his mom was dying and he wasn't going to be able to see her. Like, he blamed himself. So, he was reformed. Not that it was a good idea.
It just happened to work. One time. Just one fucking time.
Not everyone from a bad childhood ends up a criminal, but this is also specifically the instance where, yes, it happened, but it doesn't always happen. Okay,
and you don't always become a better person than usually you don't. Usually you just go fucking insane.
Yeah, usually.
Yeah.
But in this case, so
apparently if you have genius level intellect, apparently.
So let's see. This was a 16-year difference between the two. Him and Betty Shue. They were
older or younger?
Oh, he was older.
Oh,
yeah.
Lame. Okay.
Okay. Yes, both of our preferences there, but come on, it's Iceberg Slim. Of course, she's going to be younger. Mm-hmm. They were common law husband and wife, meaning that they were official to one another, but they didn't want to pay for the paperwork. With her, he had 3 daughters: Camille in 1964, Melody in 1967, and Misty in 1970. And possibly a son named either Leon or Robin, but I could find no information on either of those names whatsoever.
Do we need that information?
I think that they don't want to be associated.
Okay.
And they done well at it. So hey, Leon or Robin? No.
No.
And so they met in 1961. Mary, Robert's mother, died in 1962, meaning that Mary got to know her for a very limited time. And while Betty didn't know everything about Robert other than the fact that he was stylish, she noticed something weird was up with him. Like, she thought it was odd that he knew her dress size without measuring her, that kind of thing. But she knew something was up. He just looks her up and down just like, yeah, about 32, 48, 50.
Imagine when she found out and got mad eventually. He was just like, how the fuck am I supposed to bring that up in conversation? Like, when would this come up? You knew I went to prison.
I don't think she did.
Oh, really?
Maybe not. I don't know. Because she never knew about the pimping thing. Because the follow-up question would be...
Sorry.
I don't think that he ever mentioned it because she would have... the natural follow-up question is just like... why were you in prison? You know?
Yeah,
And
that's true.
if the answer is, we're not going to talk about it, probably not going to be common law husband and wife for very long. Well, she knew something was up with him, though. She just wasn't a questioning kind of person. On one of the very few instances that she had met Mary, Betty heard her and Robert arguing behind closed doors. And she heard Mary say shit like, Bobby, don't you take this pretty girl out and put her on the street? As a matter of fact, the last time Betty saw Mary, Mary told her, don't you trust him. But trying his best with the square life, Robert became an insecticide salesman.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean...
There's so many other ways to do that.
He was trying before in a few different ways and it didn't work out for him. Put him in solitary.
Okay.
And again, hard work
Wait,
was...
no. To be just working.
Yeah.
Like normally.
Well, yeah, but any kind of work was not for him, though. It's not his thing, you know?
Okay.
And hell, his life as a citizen in LA was not good in general. Living with a white woman meant that he couldn't integrate too far over the tracks for either side of the color spectrum. So they were always on the front lines of any race riots that happened. For instance, the Watts riots that we talked about a little bit in our Charles Bukowski
that is
episode.
your side of the bedroom. This is my...
Literally had to get a geologist for this. Anyway, for instance, the Watts riots that we talked about a little bit in our Charles Bukowski episode happened practically on their street. But one night when the kids were in bed, Robert would finally tell the tales of his past life to his wife, Betty. And Betty, I mean, she knew what prostitutes were, but she didn't understand the purpose of a pimp. Like, she could not wrap her head around the premise. Why would a woman do all the work and give the money to some prick who didn't do anything?
Oh, sweetie.
Right, yeah. And Robert didn't glorify any of the shit he'd done, but these stories were for sure interesting. Well, with Robert being as miserable as he was as an insecticide salesman, Betty told him to try writing his stories down. But he wasn't a typist, didn't know how to use a typewriter. Betty did, though. So as he told her these crazy stories while the kids were asleep, Betty would type them out. But Robert essentially ended up with like a load of short stories in the trunk of his car and didn't know what to do with them, you know? Like, he didn't know much about the book-selling game, but he figured if he found someone with an in, then maybe he could get them published.
I mean, he's pretty good at networking, so...
Yeah, he's really good at it. Kind of like how he got to be a pimp by being around other pimps. Mm-hmm. Well, Robert Beck, at the age of 47, as an insecticide salesman, was going door to door to see if anyone had any kind of bug problem. Eventually, he comes to the door of someone he'd only referred to as the professor. Now, this guy obviously didn't have a bug problem, but Robert sees all the books and the typewriter and shit behind him.
I just need the insecticides for a thing.
Put it over by that trailer over there.
Mm.
And he sees all this shit behind him, though, and he just straight up asks the guy, like, hey, you know anything about books? And so I guess without anything else to do...
Do you know anything about books, sir?
Yeah, pretty much. And I guess without anything else to do, the professor just invites him in, settles down with the Coca-Cola, and he comes in with the stories he's got in his trunk. And Robert shows him one that was fictional, about a pimp who gets ratted out by one of his girls. So when the pimp gets released from jail, he finds a prostitute, drags her out to the countryside, and then beats her to death and sets her on fire. Now, granted...
Fiction, though, right?
Fiction. As Robert will admit...
You sure about that?
Yes.
How can you be sure about
I can't be. But we're going to pretend.
What do you call it when it's the
An I-novel?
Yeah. It's an I-novel about murdering a prostitute.
His wife is just typing this like, you sure you never did this? He's like, yeah, no, totally fictional. So
yeah,
anyways.
no, the fact that it's his fucking wife he's telling these stories to when he says it's fiction, like, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck
There's
out.
No way.
No, dude.
No, he didn't do that. Come on.
Oh, really?
No way.
No, I didn't say he did it, but it was a story that he fucking heard at the very least.
Yeah, no, it probably
I mean,
was,
as far as
honestly.
whether or not he did that shit, like, who fucking knows? But, like, yeah, it happened.
Well, actually, I don't know about that, because actually the beginning of this story, him getting ratted out by one of his girls, that happened to him.
Yeah.
This was probably just catharsis for him. I mean, not everything that people write is going to be like, yeah, for sure. You know? Like,
yeah.
Yeah. And granted, as Robert will admit, it wasn't a good story. But the professor is asking some follow-up questions, as maybe anyone in that position should. You know, like, hey. And Robert tells him that
I don't know. I feel like you shouldn't. You should just be like, oh, I'm not going to say anything. Like,
Finished with your Coke? No, it's okay. I'll take it to the kitchen. You should leave. And Robert tells him that he himself used to be a pimp. And all of a sudden, the professor goes, really? Now, the professor didn't really give a shit about Robert's short stories, not the fictional ones, anyway. He said that the real money was in the true tales from the streets that Robert had mentioned. And for weeks afterwards, Robert would come to the professor's pad to talk his whole life story into a recorder. And by the time Robert had recounted everything in his life, the professor was able to make a deal. Now, sheepishly, he said that a 70-30 take was only fair, with 70% of the book sales going to Robert. But this made Robert a little antsy, like maybe this was too good to be true. As it turned out, it was. Robert offered the professor a 50-50 split, and the professor himself thought that was fine so long as they agree to a verbal agreement only. Of course, Robert wasn't stupid enough to take that, so the professor drew up a contract with the help of his lawyer, and according to Robert, he had to look it over twice before he found the part where they would basically keep everything.
fuck, I wish I could read. Make a show of it.
So although Robert did want to kill them both, as he was carrying a .25 automatic at the time that they didn't know about, he instead told them that he would think about it for a few days and then just ghosted them. But what this whole ordeal with the professor did for Robert was show him
Well, don't do that. They're white now. They're going to steal it.
Yeah. Let me just borrow the recorder, too. I got some more stories. Yeah.
No, I'm just going to hang on to
puts two
this.
bullets in the fucking recorder. Like, oops. What this whole ordeal with the professor did for him, though, was show him that there was money to be made in his life story. So in 1967, Robert Beck shopped around for some publishers to see who'd want a possible collection of short stories from his life. Problem was, he couldn't go to the white publishers because he was black, and he couldn't go to the black publishers because they were trying to print things more akin to the civil rights movement. Putting a book out about setting a hooker on fire next to Ralph Ellison and Malcolm X wouldn't look very good, you know? Mm-mm. But one day, Betty sees an ad in the Los Angeles Sentinel, a black newspaper, running an ad for a publishing company called Holloway House, in big letters, "Black Writers Needed," with 3 exclamation points. They were really putting it out there. So Robert Beck sat down with Betty
Why
to...
did you do that?
What? That was what the ad said.
No, I know. I'm not saying it was offensive. It's just something about the way you did that made me cringe. I don't know why.
Oh, yeah. I don't care what you think.
Okay.
So Robert Beck sat down with Betty to write something better than just a handful of disconnected stories. Together, they wrote Robert's autobiography, Pimp, The Story of My Life. And as Robert recounted his tales to Betty, he made 2 promises to himself. No glamorizing his former life and no snitching. Remember, he served less than a year in prison during his last stint and pretty quickly decided to write his memoirs afterwards. A lot of the people in his life were still very much alive and still dangerous. So he changed the names and called it good. For instance, Baby Bell became Sweet Jones and Satin became Glass Top. And most importantly, Robert himself didn't want to get hunted down by those that may remember him and not like what he has to say. So due to the icy demeanor we talked about before, he and Betty changed his name from Kavanaugh Slim to how he'd forever be known as Iceberg Slim. Bentley Morris, a white man working for independent publisher Holloway House, read the transcript for Pimp and saw the honest-to-God merit in Robert's writing style. He signed him on immediately, putting Pimp, The Story of My Life, on shelves that very same year. But there was one problem. Bentley didn't understand a lot of the shit Robert was talking about. He could understand things such as shiv or reefer, but was a little lost on what the fuck it meant to have a pacifier bulb. Which, by the way, is when you take the top off of a pacifier so you have a nice little bowl to draw up your heroin.
Genius.
So Bentley Morris had Robert create a glossary.
Give me that shit, baby.
He had him create
I got shit to do.
He made him create a glossary in the back of the book so any white person could figure out what a chili pimp or circus love was. It's all right there. But of course, like other publishers were worried about, Pimp was put on the quote-unquote black shelves of America's bookstores right alongside Ralph Ellison and Malcolm X. And it was because of this that the book got some pretty mixed responses from critics. This and the fact that Iceberg Slim is a very, very good writer, and people thought he was glamorizing the pimp lifestyle, which was exactly...
Yeah, I was going to say, dude, I don't feel like you can write about this shit
I know.
and be the guy who's doing it and not.
Right. He
Like,
didn't want to have it happen, but goddamn, like, honestly, he's one of my favorite writers. He is very, very good. And it kind of sucks because
really, you're going to just tell these stories and you're not going to talk yourself up at all?
Oh, and
like, get the fuck out of here.
Well, like, he stops every time to be like, and look, I was a piece of shit, but I was really good at what I did.
Okay, so nobody do this.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to tell you something really cool. But it's not cool, but it's really cool. But it's so bad.
I'm the one that's going to make pimping a good thing. But regardless of the backlash...
Pimping is bad. Now let me tell you about all this cool shit.
Let me tell you about all this pimping shit I was doing. But regardless of the backlash, Pimp still sold extremely well. And when Robert was signed on to Holloway House... God damn it, not Holloway. He and Betty were down to their last $5. This book was their last resort to make some money. When Holloway House gave them their advance, it was for $5,000, almost $42,000 today. It definitely saved their lives. But the thing about Holloway House is that they were a pretty low-level publication. They were a cheap manufacturer of cheap books. One of the reasons they were not seen as a true publishing house was partly because they didn't release hardbacks. Seriously, that shit mattered to the elites in the literary circles. But all of the writers for Holloway House agreed. While Bentley Morris, the publisher, was a good person, he was not a good salesman. This is why you could only find Holloway House books in drugstores. But even then, after 6 years, Pimp had already been under 19 reprints. Even though it wasn't advertised, word of mouth made it a bestseller. Now, like I said, the book did come with a moral. Robert was well aware that he was a piece of shit. He wrote the book as a warning to others not to go down his path. But even so...
Did that work?
No.
I don't know.
After Pimp came out, he got young hustlers stopping him on the streets and coming up to him in restaurants just begging him to take them under his wing.
You inspired me to abuse so many women,
exactly.
Sir. So many women.
And every time he had to explain to them, you're fucking your entire life up, kid. Go home. But of course, most of the time, this would result in the youngsters figuring he turned square in his old age and left to do their own thing anyway, which they're forgetting. He did this shit for like 20 years. He wasn't like an old man who's turned square. He did this shit like last week. You know?
But look, man, I'm in my late 40s. I don't have the energy to slap 400 bitches. I don't have it in me anymore.
Just his entire hand is a callus. Jesus. Well, not only that, but all the other old pimps saw how popular...
God, I hope this podcast never becomes popular. We're fucked. God damn it, dude.
All the other old pimps saw how popular Iceberg Slim was and decided that they wanted to tell all their cool stories too. The 70s did have a lot of pimp writers, but none were as good as what Iceberg could produce. Now, back when he was first trying his hand as a writer, Robert Beck was writing a lot of fiction, though it was still very much inspired by what he experienced on the streets. So Robert sold Bentley on a second novel after the success of Pimp, this time a work of fiction, but they were still going to tell everyone that it was based on a true story. So in 1967, the same year as his first book, Robert Beck released his second novel called Trick Baby, the biography of a con man. Trick Baby is the story of a black man named White Folks. Now, White Folks is called White Folks because he is essentially an albino black man. He's only half white, but his genetics were inherently the Irish side. This has made him the perfect player in a list of cons, because there's nothing a white man trusts more than a fellow white. Oh, never mind. Now, in the case of the main story...
Fuck you, no one trusts fat people.
Listen to that jolly Santa Claus laugh, though.
You trust me, you're white, you give me a house key. I'm pretty much white.
I thought it was weird that you casted that out of a thing of silly putty.
Fuck off.
You froze it, you bastard. Now, in the case of the main story, White Folks is having dinner with his partner in crime, an elderly black man named Blue. Well, in walks the most sadistic cop in Chicago, Dot Murphy. And Dot sits down at their table and tells them, you know, I saw the strangest thing today. I saw the old Italian tailor, Frassati, racing down the road with Blue in the passenger seat. He had to have been pretty excited if he closed up shop midday a week before Christmas, so I waited outside his shop to see what he'd come back with. Frassati was known to hawk cheap stolen shit through his shop, basically. Mm-hmm. And Murphy says, "And what do you know?" He gets back and he's so excited. I see him calling up someone on the phone through the window, and all of a sudden he gets worried. And Murphy says, about 10 years ago, there were a couple of kids that stole the cash register at Frassati's, and a day later ended up ice-picked head to toe in an alley, because Frassati is none other than the uncle to the most powerful mobster in Chicago. And Blue's like, "Okay, sure, we fucked up. I'll just lie that I found out the merchandise was fake and give him back the money." And Murphy tells him that he can't. It's too late. Because when Frassati learned through his phone call that what he had might be fake, whatever it is, he took it to one of his nephews and a cousin to this powerful mobster that the main characters are so afraid of. And sure enough, this cousin is a known diamond hawker. So now the cop, Murphy, knows that whatever they swindled Frassati for was a lot of money, and he wants a cut. He says no matter what the score was, he wants 5 G's. And Blue's like, "So hold on. He verified that the rocks were fake from his nephew or whatever. How come I can't talk this over with him?" Murphy says that when Frassati left his nephew's place, he hopped in his car and drove off with no caution towards anything. Sure enough, his car got hit, Frassati went flying out the windshield, and he now lies dead in the morgue. The rest of the plot of Trick Baby is a fantastic 300-page novel about how blue and white folks can get the money to Murphy while still remaining off the mob's hit list. And I really can't go any deeper into the story itself because there are so many twists and turns that it'd just end up getting really confusing. Like, there's a scam involving a boxer and a fried chicken franchise and shit. It's wild, but it's very, very good. Anyway, for promoting Trick Baby, Robert Beck was pushing this novel as a factual account. He even says in the introduction of it that white folks was somebody he'd met in prison when they shared a cell, and this whole story was told by him. And hell, maybe he really did meet an albino black guy at some point, but the story is very obviously a work of fiction. But with the success of Pimp and to promote Trick Baby, Robert had to go on TV. However, at this point, he was still worried about his anonymity keeping him alive. So I watched an interview from January 1968 of Joe Pine interviewing Iceberg Slim on the Joe Pine Show. And Ice wears this fucking mask to hide his identity, and it is frightening. He looks like the Riddler in the new Batman movie. That's honestly like what the mask looks like. And this guy, Joe Pine, he's like, "Now, a Trick Baby would imply, I believe, that his mother was a prostitute and that she had sexual congress with a white man and had been in an accident. How did he respond to being called Trick Baby?" It's a very odd interview.
I want to watch this shit. Let's pause and watch this shit real quick.
We'll watch it after. It's good. It's good.
Sexual congress.
Sexual congress. Can't wait to.
I'm gonna remember that one.
Yeah, I can't wait to use that in the bedroom. Like, "Hey, baby, ready for a little sexual congress?
Some sexual congress.
Want a firm handshake?" 2 years after Trick Baby, Robert Beck made his second work of fiction and his third book overall, the extremely depressing and perhaps my personal favorite, Mama Black Widow. You know what? Actually, so if you've gotten this far, it is.
Don't think too hard.
Look, trigger warning to this part in particular.
Okay.
I don't know how long you got to move forward, maybe 5 minutes or something, but we're going to talk about a pretty violent abortion. Anyway, So, and this story is again supposedly from the main character's mouth himself after having met Iceberg in a flop house and telling him his life story. But I mean, come on. Of course it's fiction. The story is about Otis Tilson, who, as the youngest of his family, was always Mama's pet, her sweet pea. But not her favorite. That title went to Otis's older brother, Frank Jr. Now, when he was young, his mom and dad, Frank Jr., and his 2 older sisters all lived on a plantation working for this white family named the Wilkersons. Not like slave days, but just working on a plantation. But they still had like the fucking housing out front and shit.
You're talking like a sharecropping situation?
Yeah, like they're technically getting paid, but still, under threat of life, Yeah. Well, one day, Otis is peeling potatoes or some shit in his shack with his mother when Frank Jr., his older brother, who works in the Wilkersons' mansion, comes running in. Tells Mama to get rid of Otis. He's got to tell her something. And she's like, "Nah, the kid's fine. What is it?" And he's like, "I was cleaning the grandfather clock in the Wilkersons' home, and I found hidden money inside of it. $100.40. It's not trick money. You can tell it's been there a long time. Ain't no one is going to come looking for it." And meanwhile, Otis's father and sisters are working out in the field, so it's just the 3 of them that know about the cash. And his mom is like, fuck him. I got a friend that lives up in Chicago. We're leaving, just the three of us. And it's not like Otis's dad is a bad guy or anything. Mama's just an unbearable cunt in this book, hence the title, Mama Black Widow. Unfortunately for Mama, Frank Sr. and the twins come back home, so now they have to escape up to Chicago as a family. And as it turned out, it was trick money. The family narrowly escapes the Wilkersons going door to door of their workers' shacks looking for their fucking money. Well, they get set up in Chicago with the help of Mama's cousin.
They use the fake money.
Well, it's not fake money. It's real money, but it's trick money. They were just waiting for somebody to steal it so that they could pretty much lynch them. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So they go up to Chicago with the help of Mama's cousin. And over the course of the book, everyone falls to the evils of the big city, but only one of them truly flourishes among the chaos. Mama. She slowly gets more abusive towards her family. In particular, her husband, who eventually has to move out of the apartment and in with a buddy while he slowly dies of alcoholism.
What? Stop looking at me. I'm fine. Jesus.
Frank Jr. starts hanging out with gangsters, but overall keeps a good head on his shoulders. You know, he really doesn't seem to do anything too dangerous. He even keeps away from the local bad guy that's about his age, who everyone refers to as Lockjaw. And Lockjaw, he's not really invited to the apartment, but he keeps making an appearance, specifically for the prettier of the two older twins, Carol. And Carol obviously wants nothing to do with this guy. In fact, she ends up dating this nice German boy instead. But Mama, she's insistent that Carol talk to Lockjaw, specifically because Mama has an intense hatred of white people. But behind her back, Carol still dates the German kid. Actually, she's got a lot of connections to Robert Beck's mother. Hates the white people, the way she treats the husband. Okay. Now, while this is happening, the apartment gets furnished with nicer and nicer digs. New furniture, wallpaper, whatever. And Mama's not saying how she's getting any of it. People just kind of like assume maybe she's turning tricks or something, but nobody asks. Well, eventually, Carol comes home from a date with the German kid, and Mama's like, "Oh, good, you're home. Look, I got you this nice dress, and you're gonna go out on the town with that nice boy Lockjaw tonight." And she's like, "Mama, I'm not going out with that creep." She's like, "Yes, you are. Who do you think has been giving us all this nice stuff?" So she's basically been prostituting her daughter with fucking down payments, like on layaway. Ooh. Yeah. And Carol's
this
like...
is your favorite one.
Yeah, this is very dark. Oh, here's the part.
Okay.
And Carol's like, "I'm already seeing someone else, and I'm pregnant with his baby." And holy shit,
Well, then we don't got a lot of time.
I'm going to keep this brief, but in what was one of the most disturbing things I have ever read. Mama gets Carol on the floor and starts kneeing her in the stomach over and over again, drags her to the bathroom, and forces an abortion on her in the bathtub. Now, I don't know if you've seen your face. Dude, it was pages long, brother. It is bad. I don't know if you've seen how a back alley abortion is done, but it's quite messy.
I have not.
And Carol is in extremely poor health from the procedure that her mom just did on her. Like, she's still bleeding profusely.
Yeah, no shit.
So she still can't go out with Lockjaw anyway. Instead, when Lockjaw...
Oh, dang it, now you can't go out with him.
Right? Like, and she's just like, God damn you. God damn you. Instead, when Lockjaw drops by, Mama forces the other twin, Bessie, to take her place that night. Like, she still forces one of her daughters out. And, like, he notices the difference. I know they're twins, but Bessie's a little heavier. But he just has to make do. As Carol bleeds to death in her own bed, the door is cracked open, and Mama is watching with one eye through the crack like the fucking Babadook. The only thing Carol can seem to say is, "Why Mama killed my baby?" And Otis, trying his best to make her feel better and not knowing that she's dying, tells her, "Mama threw him in the garbage box, but I'll get him and bring him to you when she goes to bed." Whew, security chuckle. Now, if I had to guess, I would say that Mama Black Widow calls to a lot of things that Ice had seen over the years, or stories he at least heard in prison, but everything in this book is absolutely dreadful. There's not a single happy chapter in it. Obviously, no one in the story gets a happy ending, except Otis himself, who becomes trans and leaves his mother while she comes down with health issues and ends up paralyzed. As Otis leaves her grasp as an adult only because she can no longer chase after him, he says to himself, quote, "I was never a religion buff, but for some mythical reason I heard an old slave chant reverberating through my being. Free at last, great God Almighty, I'm free at last." And that would be his happy ending, but Iceberg Slim gives us this short epilogue. Quote, "In the middle part of April..."
Oh, well, I mean, it's a black trans person. It was fine, right?
"In the middle part of April in 1969, I received a telegram from a writer friend of mine in Chicago. The sad message of the telegram was to inform me that Otis Tilson had taken his own life by hanging in a Skid Row hotel in New York City. I can't help but wonder what he expected to find there except the misery that is the heritage of his kind. Perhaps the final solution to the torture of spirit and body that he endured could only be death." No reason to do that whatsoever. It was happy before he just flops in that one paragraph. It's horrifying.
It is pretty good.
Yeah. There was actually supposed to be a movie version of Mama Black Widow starring Rihanna, Most Def, and Macy Gray. Sometime back in 2008, but it got canceled.
Yeah.
Doesn't that sound like a 2008 cast? Rihanna, Most Def, Macy Gray.
All right, everybody, let's... All right, Rihanna, you're just going to have to get beaten. Just going to have to act like...
Why'd you drop out?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Anyway, from here, Iceberg wrote a second set of memoirs, although a very short list in comparison to Pimp. You could almost see this as like the deleted scenes from Pimp. He called it The Naked Soul of Iceberg Slim, Robert Beck's real story, and released it in 1971.
Naked Soul. That's totally fiction. It's totally fiction.
Well, one story from this collection that I really liked, though, was after this incident in 1969, when the LAPD just figured they had had enough of the Black Panthers and decided to bomb their building. Oh, yeah. Like, no warrants or anything, no real provocation. They were just sick of them. Well, over the next 5 hours, there was a standoff between the Black Panthers and the LAPD in which they traded over 5,000 shots, and miraculously, no one was killed. And yeah, it ended in the arrest of a bunch of Black Panther members who were just, like, there, but they all eventually walked free since the police followed no procedures whatsoever. Anyway, Robert went down to the Black Panther headquarters to see if he could help with whatever they needed that very same day. Once there, he was recognized by the older members of the Black Panthers who were like, "We appreciate the offer, but we don't want any help from a guy like you." And he walked away from that moment just so fucking proud of them. Like, nothing was better than the feeling that someone had learned that he was indeed a horrendous piece of shit and shouldn't be admired. Now, around the same time as The Naked Soul of Iceberg Slim was released Trick Baby. The Naked Soul of Iceberg Slim was released. Trick Baby...
Quick in and out. Come on.
Trick Baby was doing well enough that it was made into a 1972 blaxploitation film. No one was in it that you or I would know, although the guy that played the bartender Isaac on The Love Boat and the lady that played Will Smith's mom in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air are in it. That's the most I could see that I could recognize. Huh. Apparently,
I don't think he liked that.
Apparently, the movie was produced for $600,000, but made a return of $11 million because the film was premiered in all of the blackest neighborhoods in Chicago.
Okay, maybe you liked it a little.
And it became a big cult film for that summer. From what I hear, the movie's not that great, but the white guy pretending to be a white-looking black guy as white folks does this whole black accent thing, and it's extremely embarrassing. And Caleb will show you now.
We're watching this later. How dare you?
In 1976,
I'm gonna stab you.
There's the Rican in ya.
Shut up.
In 1976, at the age of 58, Iceberg Slim released an album called Reflections, in which he reads prose over smooth jazz. Now, here's the thing. Dude fully admits that he's a monster in the beginning of his career.
But then reads his stories over fucking smooth jazz.
Almost 10 years later, he's giving this silvery voice over jazz to lines like this. Now, I'm going to read you a little bit, and it's going to go... This is my impression of his voice. Okay. No. It's not the same problem that the Trick Baby movie went through.
This.
No, it's fine.
I don't like this.
Now, it wasn't by chance that I caught her glance, 'cause I intended to steal this dame. So I smiled with glee and said, golly gee, it's time for this kid to gain. Her eyes shone bright in the neon light, and from there a teardrop fell.
I still think you should just talk normally.
When I asked her why, she began to cry and tell me this bitter tale.
This is 100% your decision.
About some guy who blacks her eye and takes all the dough she gets. And now she lays in jail, and he won't get her bail, and dares to call it quits. So I said, bitch, dry your tears and have no fears, for the kind lover is here. Like, and it's just very dung 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 dung.
Okay,
You know,
I also want everybody to know, go ahead and back up a little bit, and then Jordan saying this, well, he looks like the toy collector guy from Toy Story 2.
That is true.
So just picture
That's very
that
true.
happening and coming out of that mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, the Cheeto fingers, man.
Yeah, I'm only going to post pictures of my mouth now. Just.
Ugh.
But I guess to be fair, these lines may not even have been written by Iceberg in the first place. On the back of the record at the bottom, it says written for Iceberg Slim by Shelby Meadows Ashford. So I can't even really be sure these are his words. But they could have just meant that this Shelby lady wrote the liner notes on the back, because when I searched her name, it seems like that was what she did for a lot of black musical acts. Anyway, the question was eventually raised, did Iceberg Slim get back into pimping while he was in LA? And it has been debated, mostly by his own children. Well, one may be adamant that he did not. Oh, God, that he did not. The other says that they remember a lot of ladies moving around the bedrooms as a kid.
I mean, he at least was swinging.
Yeah, and here's the thing. She even has a Polaroid being held as a baby by a woman in a red mesh shirt, like fishnet shirt. Like, you see her titties and everything. So I don't know, but probably.
Just a little bit.
A little
At
bit.
least some swinging.
Well, Betty Shue said, she says that, he knew that if he did any kind of pimping shit, that the marriage was over. It could be that they were just swinging, honestly. That actually seems a little bit more likely to me.
Yeah.
In 1977, Robert Beck published 2 novels, again through Holloway House. Death Wish, A Story of the Mafia, which I haven't read, and The Long White Con, the biggest score of his life, which I did. Now, The Long White Con is a sequel to Trick Baby, which I would call one of his greater novels. But The Long White Con is, as far as I've read, and I haven't read 2 of his books, this is by far his worst. We're still following white folks, though we're introduced to a dozen characters who you don't have the time to remember over the next one, because the book is only 150 pages long. And I found 2 different instances where Iceberg copied and pasted directly from Trick Baby. Once when white folks talks about his mother, and once when he talks about his father. But either way, the actual long con the group of characters plays on people was for sure original, but it's so fucking weird and unrealistic. All right, so I need you to imagine this.
Wait, did you
Basically,
mean his worst, it's the most horrendous, or the worst is, and it's not his best work?
oh, it's nothing's gonna top Mama Black Widow as far as being horrendous. No, this was just, it was bad. It was it wasn't good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
bad.
Yes, it
Not
was bad.
good.
Yeah, it was a not good novel.
Not good, bad. Okay.
Basically, what they do, this group of cons, is build a literal small town on the outskirts of whatever desert. Let's say outside Las Vegas. Then they'd have white folks tell some rich guy, hey, I'm an archaeologist, and there's this statue called the Unhappy Virgin that's worth tons of money. You want to go get it and split the riches? And then when they go to this little town out in the desert, they'd find the Unhappy Virgin and want to talk with whoever owns the property, because of course whoever doesn't know its true value. But it turns out the owner of the property, and not just the statue, but of this actual entire dilapidated ghost town itself, is a guy who's so old that by the time white folks in the mark get there, he's just passed away. And the guy who plays the deceased is, of course, one of the con men from the team. I don't know why they had to have somebody play a dead body. They could have just said, oh yeah, he died, he's in back. Don't worry, you don't want to see a dead body. So since this guy's dead, that means the Unhappy Virgin is up for grabs. Well, the dead guy's brother, another con man from the group, wants to sell everything, including the town, and get it over with. And he doesn't care what price it is. But there's another treasure hunter there, also a con man from the group, and they want the Unhappy Virgin as well.
This is really boring.
So the dead con man's brother does a little auction right then and there and the mark will start throwing his money on the statue in the hopes that it's really as valuable as they say it is. And it's very complicated. Also, the book ends fucking fast. Like, the climax and resolution to the whole story happens in like the last 5 pages.
Okay, so this is fuck. Yeah. All right. Yeah, this one's fiction.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not good.
Yeah.
Well, as Robert Beck got older, he started hanging out with a Western actor R.G. Armstrong for some fucking reason. I looked up who this guy was, and all I recognized him from was that he was the Sandman in the Enter Sandman music video for Metallica.
Oh.
So he was hanging out with this dude. Anyway, Robert started getting real fucking lazy hanging out with R.G. Armstrong. When Betty picked up a part-time job, Robert stopped doing anything altogether. That's when Betty realized that essentially she was being pimped. She finally understood it. Robert was expecting that she paid the rent and all the bills with just one part-time job. And I'm sure, hopefully, type some stuff up for him as well.
Wait, he wasn't making like decent money from releasing all these books?
That was his only thing. Oh, actually, pretty much no.
No?
No, and I'll get to that as well.
Oh, okay.
Well, Betty ended up leaving with the kids, which at the end of her life, she actually ended up regretting.
Like there was like a movie.
Yeah.
He just didn't.
It all went to the publisher, basically.
Oh,
He didn't make Jack. She actually regretted leaving him, though. She said it really pained her to leave the partner who she helped create the Iceberg Slim persona with. Years later, Robert began regular contact with a woman named Diane Millman through fan letters. They eventually married in 1982. During this time, Robert Beck published only one other novel in his lifetime, called Airtight Willie and Me in 1985.
Airtight Willie.
Airtight Willie and Me, 1985. Not when he's done with me. After that, he largely gave up writing altogether. The last years of Robert Beck's life were plagued with financial hardships and diabetes. On April 30th, 1992, Robert Lee Maupin, later Kavanaugh Slim, later Robert Beck, and even later Iceberg Slim, died at the age of 73 from liver failure. He was buried in Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale. 3 novels have been released since Iceberg's death. Doom Fox was actually written in 1978, but for some reason, Ice never felt the reason to publish it. Although the reason could be that he never did. According to Robert's eldest daughter, Camille, Doom Fox was written by her sister Melody and Robert's widow, Diane Millman. The book is about a black family living in Southside LA after World War II, and apparently it is a very bad novel. But Diane Millman says that according to what Robert told her, he had a falling out with Holloway House before he could ever present the novel to them, so he never bothered with it. Also, according to Diane, Camille is just mad that Robert Beck only listed Diane and his daughter Melody to split his estate in his will and not her. But Holloway House did look at the novel for first dibs because, hey, if they did the rest of his work, then why not this one? But strangely, they were of the opinion that Doom Fox was not one of Robert's works, so they passed on it. Regardless, it was published in September of 1998 by Grover Press. In 2015, another work of Robert's was published called Shaitani's Sister, and even as recent as 2019 is what was called Slim's final novel, Night Train to Sugar Hill.
What was called, or
that's what they call it, but honestly, if they
was called Slim's final novel?
Yeah. Well, no, it's called Night Train to Sugar Hill.
I feel like you goofed.
You know what?
A bit.
All right, fuck you.
No, fuck me. You're the one fucking up. Fuck
no,
you.
Fuck me.
Fuck you.
Yeah, fuck me.
Yes.
In 2005, Diane Millman and Iceberg's 3 daughters filed lawsuit against Holloway House, claiming that they never paid Robert Beck royalties and that was the reason he died penniless. Which honestly isn't that far-fetched. If you were to look at the math that Holloway House presents on the receipts for what they owe you on any of the royalty checks, the numbers never really added up. And apparently they were well known for it too. As author Emery Holmes put it, quote, "I'm happy when my beer money comes in the form of a royalty check." In 2008, Holloway House was bought by Kensington Books. They haven't stopped printing the works of Iceberg Slim since. Betty Shue, Robert's common-law wife, passed away in 2009, and Camille Mary Beck died January 9th, 2010 of a supposed drug overdose. Whether he meant to be or not, the legend of Iceberg Slim has inspired many young pimps throughout the decades. When Tracy Morrow was in his teens, he used to recite the words of Iceberg Slim to his friends. They would get excited for the stories and tell him, "Yo, kick us some of that ice, T." and thus Ice-T was born.
Hmm.
This was the first chapter of Ice-T that I hope everyone enjoyed. No, so apparently I did look it up. Ice-T did try to be a pimp based on like Iceberg Slim's novels. And basically he treated pimp.
It's not to inspire people. It's not to glorify it.
He tried to use pimp as like a manual. Him and his friend tried to be a pimp for like one day. And basically what happened was that
These women beat our asses.
Kinda. So what happened was him and his friend, they pick up some prostitutes and they bring them up to a hotel room and they're like, yeah, so you boys wanted to talk to us? And they're like, yeah, hang on a second. And then they went into the bathroom where they had pimp like stashed.
Now that we're here, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, no, they had pimp like stashed in a drawer and like all the pages marked and shit. So they'd memorize some shit really fast, like just two dudes going to the bathroom together. And then they come back out and they're like, yeah, walk between the raindrops, bitch. And he says like very quickly, they like all that they were rude to these two women, and very quickly
They're just like, we are 30-year-old sex workers. I have read pimp.
Yeah, and they're like basically they realized very quickly that these are two kids that have no idea what they were doing. So they left and then stole his friend's car. My sources.
You really got to commit to being a bad person to do this. I don't know if you have it in you, Ice-T.
Oh, they stole my car.
Like, no, Ice-T, you're going to have to viciously assault these women. Like, you're going to have to do that.
My sources today. Pimp, The Story of My Life by Iceberg Slim, Cash Money Content, Trade Paperback Edition, May 2011. The Naked Soul of Iceberg Slim by Iceberg Slim, Payback Press, 1996, though I think that's a lie since it's giving me links to websites. Mama Black Widow, A Story of the South's Black Underworld by Iceberg Slim, Holloway House, 1969. Trick Baby, The Story of a White Negro by Iceberg Slim. It's in the title. Cash Money Content, Trade Paperback Edition, September 2011. Long White Con, The Biggest Score of His Life by Iceberg Slim. Cash Money Content, First Trade Paperback Edition, January 2012. I really like Iceberg Slim. This list is long. Iceberg Slim Reflections by Iceberg Slim, Shelby Meadows Ashford, and the Red Holloway Quartet, BLKGLV Records, 1976. Iceberg's Kin Disagree. Is It the Real Slim or Shady by Beverly Bayette, September 4th, 2001, LATimes.com. There was a reference for the Times.
2001, I guess.
Yeah. Iceberg Slim interview by Joe Pine, YouTube.com. The Hustle, The Story of Robert Beck, a.k.a. Iceberg Slim by Mark Skills, February 5th, 2010, hiphopandpolitics.com. Iceberg Slim, Portrait of a Pimp. I can't tell which company distributes this movie, but I see that it's produced by Ice-T, so I'm just going to say Ice-T distributes it, 2012.
Yeah, why
and
not?
Wikipedia.
Okay.
Now, the reason Caleb knows a little bit about this person at the very least...
Are we not going to go over this at all?
We're going to go over what I did to kind of fuck things up a little bit. So,
fucking idiot.
So here I was researching, and I thought to myself, I wonder if I can, like, find any of his relatives. So all I did was Google and found one of his relatives. So I called her up, and they're just like, hello? And I'm like, hey, is this so-and-so? And they're like, it is. Is your father's name Robert? Yes. And I'm just like, hi, I'm a fan of your father's work. Like,
hi, I'm a white podcaster from Portland.
I'm just like, hi, and don't know what to say. I didn't think I'd get that far. And
what the fuck did you think was going to happen when you called her number?
Look.
What else would happen?
I tried to think of a word that means brave, but also a little retarded, and brazen. I'm very brazen about things.
It's just dumb.
It's just stupid.
It's just dumb.
And so basically, we're
trying to not say retarded either.
Well,
remember?
Yeah, but to be fair,
remember hard no on the N word, and then retard is we're trying. We're doing our best.
Progress in myself.
Okay.
Sure, why not? Well, either way, she was like, why are you calling me though? And I was just like, I don't know, maybe at a later date, can I ask you some questions or something? Like, and she was like, okay, you sound A, white, and B, like maybe you're a millennial or Gen X, and I want to know, are you gonna turn something racist? Are you racist? And I'm like, no. And I'm thinking in my head, like, fair question. Your father is a known bad man. Is someone going to try and spin this shit to like by the way, here's the bad black guy of the week kind of thing. It was a fair question. And, but no, by the end of the phone call, we were, I was like, hey, I'm sorry, I got your number online. It was easy enough to get. Here's the website so that you can scrub it and everything. And, I was like, hey, would you mind doing some questions later? And she was like, I'll get back to you on that. I'm going to have a friend do a background search on you, 'cause he's a cop. I'm like, that's fine. Like, you're not going to see anything except for like a really small subscriber base.
Is he a scary cop?
And aren't they all?
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, so in case I don't ever hear from you again, I just want to let you know that Mama Black Widow is just like one of my favorites. Because I was fanboying.
And why would you mention Mama Black Widow?
It's one of my favorite books. I was being honest. I was like, Mama Black Widow is one of my favorite books.
Someone who likes children, you fucking weirdo. What the hell is wrong with you? Jesus.
I've made other mistakes in my life, too. That's not the only one.
God
but she was just, oh, thank you very much. It was nice talking to you. Bye-bye. She didn't contact me again. Probably for the best. But either way.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're listening to this and you know who you are, I hope you enjoyed the episode.
I wish you had that kind of confidence when you actually had the interaction, you fucking pussy.
I was looking at some other authors and shit, and I was like, I could actually maybe contact their kids, too. But I don't think I'm going to do that
Welcome to Caleb
again.
Can't Read. We're going to call authors kids.
Hey, you're on the air and you're scared. How you doing today?
Hey, this is Caleb Can't Read. Fucking what?
You haven't heard of us, but we've heard of you.
Unless they're in Bangladesh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't contact me.
No, you shouldn't contact them.
No, don't contact me.